Okay, so I could just show you an example and tell you what is going on, but you might be get a little bit confused. So I'm gonna build a very simple code on the screen, and then we will hit a problem. So once you get the idea of what the problem is, I'm gonna tell you how to fix it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna add an input and then change the name of a user, which is Francis. If not, of course, we will say not allowed. Don't worry, I'm gonna do it right here and you're gonna get the idea. First I'm gonna create, oh, sorry, not a div. I'm gonna add an input, right? Just an input. And then we will add the model so we can, toggle the information. So this one is gonna be called user, all right? So then I'm gonna put a horizontal ruler, and then I'm gonna be creating a div, and this one is gonna be equal to name, and then we're gonna show the name. But instead of the name, we can show a message. All right, message with double S. So now what I want to do, whenever the application loads, I want to show a message if the user is Francis or maybe a different user. So I'm going to do comma, I'm going to add a data, and I'm going to say user, open and close. And for now, I'm going to leave it empty. Then I'm going to do comma, I'm going to add the methods, and I'm going to add this message. So when the application loads, this function is gonna run and it's gonna do something. All right. Okay. So inside of this, I'm gonna say message, open and close. Now I'm gonna return if this user it's equal to Francis with capital F. Remember, and then we're gonna say welcome as a message. If not, we are gonna say not allowed. And let me just break this one. Very good. All right. Really simple code. Really simple code. If I reload the application, of course, we get the input, and by default, it's not allowed because, the input is empty. Now, if I type Francis, we get welcome, right? So that works. All right. So this is okay. Now, I'm going to be adding a second thing that it's not related to the input, to the name. So I'm going to go right here at the bottom. I'm going to add a button with a B on, and we can add a click, just like this, click, equals, and then of course we can be passing something, and I'm going to say, other action. This one, it's going to be an action that it's not related to the username. So I'm going to say other action. So whenever we click it, I'm going to say toggle, and then active. This is the name of my function. We don't have it. We need to create it right now. Okay, so this one is going to print active, true, or false, right? Or yes, it's active, or no, it's not active. So we're going to say active, and then I'm going to run pretty much the same function, the same thing with it with message. I'm going to run a function called isActive. All right, so now we need to create two functions, the toggle active and the isActive, right? Same thing with it with message. So I'm going to first create the isActive. Going to go right here at the bottom, say comma, going to put isActive, create a new method, and this one is going to be return this dot active, just like this, equals to, again, we change it to active, then colon, and we say not active. Of course, we need to add it to the data, so I'm going to say active and active. So we are pretty much doing the same thing with it with the name, but with active. All right, really simple. Now the thing is that we have a function that it's going to be toggling the active to something true or maybe to false. So we need to add it. I'm going to add the function, all right, the method, and it's going to say active equals to this dot active. If it's not active, if it's true, we're going to change it to false. And if it's false, we're going to change it to true. So we are pretty much toggling the active status. By default, it could be, I don't know, false. Right. So I'm going to reload it, and we get not active. I'm going to click the other action. We change it to active, and the Francis, of course, still works. Very, very simple. Now, here's the problem. Both actions, the input of the name and the click of the button, are not related at all. They are completely different functions. They are not related. I'm going to go to message, and say console log, and I'm going to print something. Then say message triggered, something like that. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to the isActive. So whenever we run this function, we're going to see this message. So instead of message, I'm going to say active so we can tell the difference. So whenever we trigger the message, we're going to get this console. And whenever we trigger the active, we're going to get this message on the console. All right. So I'm going to reload the application, and I'm going to go to the console. And let me make this a little bit bigger. All right. So right from the start, we are, of course, triggering both functions. So we get message triggered and active triggered at least once. So now if I go to Francis, notice how many times we are doing this. And notice that we are activating the message, and that is good, but we are still activating the trigger, even though I didn't click on the button. All right, so let me try it again. If I do other action, we should be getting this function, right? But we're gonna get both. So if I click it, we get message and active. So the problem is that even though these functions are not related at all, if I trigger one, it's gonna trigger the other one. It doesn't matter. What Vue.js is gonna do is gonna go through all the code and re-execute everything again because it's re-rendering. You know, that is the way it works. And of course, this is just a simple code. You know, it's simple example. If it's triggering both, you know, it doesn't matter because it's not a lot of code. You know, it's not a big problem. But what happens if you have a function right here or method that it's going to be doing a lot of things, you know, a lot of lines of code, or maybe it's making a network request or something like that. You're going to trigger it again. So it's not a good idea to use it just like this. So let me tell you the solution. All right, so the solution would be to use computed properties. So I'm gonna fix it, and then I'm gonna tell you how how that works. Now instead of message, I'm gonna delete this one, and I'm gonna say comp, and then message. And notice right here, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing the parentheses. Now I'm gonna go at the bottom, and it could be at the top or maybe at the bottom of methods. I'm gonna be adding the computed. So this one, we just declare like this one, just like methods or maybe data or L. It's a different property of Vue. Now, since we are calling it right here, we need to add it right here. And we just add it just like a function, all right? So I'm gonna copy whatever we have inside message. I'm gonna delete this and delete the message function. And I'm gonna put it inside. So okay, I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna reload the application. So instantly, since we are calling both functions, the comp message and the isActive, both functions are triggering, all right? So that is good. We get the message and we get the active. So now if I type Francis, again, both are getting, you know, triggered. The message and the active. Now, if I reload the application again and click on other action, we are going to be triggering this functions, all right, these methods, not this one. And if I click it, we just get active triggered. So it's triggering this both, and it's not reloading this function. So what is going on? Okay, so the computed property is a property, all right? We declare this as a function, but it's a property. And it's aware of the user inside the data. So it's only going to react when there is a change in the user. That's why whenever we click the active, we are just toggling the active false. We are not making a change inside the user. So since this one works with user, it's not gonna change anything. It knows what happens right here, right? And it's just gonna skip if there's no change on this one. It's not gonna run. So, you know, it's pretty smart. And you know, this is a very simple example. But in a large scale app, this is a lifesaver. Now, there's one thing you need to know about computer properties. They are synchronous. You cannot reach to a server, you cannot make a network request inside of a computed property because they are properties and they need to run right away. They need to run as soon as possible. You cannot make a network request and wait for the promise to get resolved, right? The same thing with the set timeout. You cannot do something and then wait for maybe 5 or 10 seconds because it's not going to get resolved. You're not going to see the changes. All right, that's okay. So we have one more thing to discuss. So now we have a different one. It's kind of related to Computed, but it's of course different. And we have watchers. And this one, we could achieve the same behavior, but it works a little bit different. So the watch property is just like Computed, a different property. It's going to be watch, just like this. I'm going to open and close. So the watchers, this property is going to be waiting for a change on a property or something before it runs. So after it detects a change on something, then it's going to run, right? So that's the idea. It kind of makes sense. It waits for a change and it runs only if there is a change. So for example, I'm going to just give you an example. I'm going to say loading and then open and close, and I'm going to say loading. So this one is going to be true or false. I'm going to go right here at the bottom and say loading. And at the beginning, when the application starts, it's going to be just false, right? Loading false. So what I want to do, I want to add a rule inside watch. And this one is going to be watching the active. So I'm going to say watch active open and close. And again, we write this just like a function. Now this active needs a value, right? Okay. Now why am I doing active? And it's because it's the name of the property. So if I maybe watching for the user, this one of course should be user. And the value is going to be whatever value this watcher has, this property has. Just like, again, we just use it just like a function. All right. So let me just console log, and I'm going to console log the value. And the value is this one, all right? So whenever we trigger a change or the application detects a change on active, then it's going to run this active function and it's going to run whatever we have inside of here. So I'm going to reload the application. I'm going to click other action and we get the console log of true, which is the value of active. Really, really simple. Now, the good thing about watchers is that you can run async code. You can make a network request. For example, I'm going to build this and I can say, okay, whenever we detect a change in active, I'm going to change first the loading back to true. And of course, if we reload the application, we can see it going. We can see true. All right. But after maybe 3 seconds, we're going to turn it off again. So we're going to set timeout, open and close, and we're just going to run a function after 3 seconds. Some code after 3 seconds. So that loading equals to false. And this is something we cannot do with Computed, right? We cannot do async code, only synchronous code. So if I reload the application, click on it, and after 3 seconds, we get it back to false. So again, watchers, we can do async. Computed, we cannot do async code. So again, just like I told before, we are just learning the basics, the very, very basics. As we advance through the course, we're going to use watchers in a more dedicated way, just like Computed. And when we've reached the practice projects, then we're going to use them again. So if you don't get the idea of this, you don't completely get it, I don't know, maybe 60%, let's say 60%, that's okay. Just keep moving forward, okay? Because we're going to go back to this later, all right? Okay, that's good. Let's go to the next one. It's going to be very, very short.